Gridiron Central is sponsored by Georgia Northwestern Technical College, Riverside Automotive Group.
Welcome to Gridiron Central. I'm your host, Jim Allred. We have 2 weeks left to go in the regular season. It's the preview show, so with me, beside me, is Matt Davis of 95.7 The Ridge.
Obligatory fist bump.
Had to do the fist bump. A lot of crazy games last week, a couple of upsets. We'll get to those a little bit as we're going to talk about this week's games. We're going to start off as Gordon Central travels to play at Daresville. 93% of our UPick'em users believe that the Warriors will beat the Tigers as they go on the road. What do you think, Matt?
Well, one of the things I think about this game is that you've got two really good teams on offense. If you saw how Daresville performed last week against Cartersville, you probably wouldn't think that about Daresville because they only put up a field goal against them, scored 3 points. Cartersville's got to be the real deal. I have not seen them play this year, but they are just performing so excellent. But in this game, I think that things are going to be evened up a little bit more than you saw in that particular matchup with Daresville and Cartersville, and Gordon Central and Cartersville for that matter. Both of these teams struggled. It's just Daresville struggled more against Cartersville than Gordon Central did. Expect a lot of offense. This game could become a shootout rather quickly, I would think. But at the end of the day, I think that the difference in the game is going to be on the defensive side of the ball. Gordon Central's pitched a few shutouts over the course of the year. They've been really solid on defense for the most part. Daresville, on the other hand, they've given up about 30 points per game. You're not going to win too terribly many games doing that unless you have a powerful offense like Daresville does have. But even with that, you're still going to drop some when you go up against teams that have a comparable or if not even better offense that you have. And I think that's the case here. I think Gordon Central is definitely better on the defensive side of the ball, but I also think they're a little bit better on offense as well. So I think Gordon Central will win this game hands down.
Yeah, and in many ways, this is a statement game for Gordon Central because obviously with the loss of Cartersville, it was a more lopsided loss than most people thought was going to happen. And yes, I do believe Cartersville's a real deal. Of course, I was saying that at the beginning of the season, not right now. I thought it from the very beginning. Anyway, Gordon Central, Daresville does not have a defense that can really stop Gordon Central. And I think the key thing here is Gordon Central's defense has stopped everybody other than Cartersville, and no one stopped Cartersville. I don't think Daresville's going to be able to score hardly at all on Gordon Central. I think Gordon Central's going to run away. I don't think it'll be running clock, but I think Gordon Central's going to win this game, and I don't think it's really even going to be close in the second half. Moving on, our Murchie at Coosa. 85% of our UPick'em users believe the Eagles will beat the Indians. Matt, any reason to think otherwise?
Well, I gave Coosa the nod last week. I thought they were going to win that game against Model. Boy, was I ever wrong, and boy, have I heard about it pretty much all week long, more or less. Coosa came out of the gate really strong against Model. They scored a quick touchdown on, I believe it was a 68-yard drive. They were well-balanced in offense. I thought, here we go. This is what I expected to happen. Then after that, it seemed like every time they touched the ball, they fumbled it and really just fell apart. I'm not sure exactly what happened to them in that game. I think part of it was that Model came out firing on all cylinders, played a really good football game, and put them away. The final score was 22-7. In this game, I think you've got two teams that may be a little bit more evenly matched than you saw last week. Murchie has really struggled this year. Their biggest problem, well, they've had a lot of problems, but one of their biggest problems has been getting in the end zone. They can't seem to find their stride in terms of offense. On the other hand, Coosa at times can find their stride, and they definitely have a few more weapons, I think, on offense than Murchie does. And then you flip to the defensive side of the ball, definitely think Coosa is a better team. They're going to be able to keep Murchie out of the end zone. At the end of the day, I think Coosa has a stronger team. I think they'll win this game.
I think there are 2 or 3 things in going into Coosa's favor in this game. Number one, if Coosa wins, they're still alive for a playoff spot. Still in a very good spot to get to the playoffs. It would be probably the number 4 seed out of 7AA, depending on how other games fall. But they have that. Number 2, Coosa lost last week, and it was a tough loss. I mean, there were a lot of turnovers in that game, and Matt's right. In the first quarter, first drive, you thought, oh, man, Coosa's going to take it to Model. Did not happen. Model's defense lived in Coosa's offensive backfield from the second quarter on, and Coosa could not get anything going. Several turnovers led to Model touchdowns, and, Model kind of controlled them. Coosa wants to come back from that, want to bounce back. They want to get to the playoffs. I think they're a better team defensively. I think they're a little bit better team offensively as well. Both of these are young teams. Both of these are teams that are looking to improve. I think Coosa is going to be good enough to win this game. Moving on, Model, the Blue Devils, only have 1 region loss this year. They travel to Calhoun. 100% of our UPick'em users believe that Calhoun, who is currently on a 23-game winning streak, will get win number 24. Matt, any reason to think otherwise.
Oh, man, I'm kind of laughing because apparently there was a newspaper from Friday that was kind of floating around at Model late in the game yesterday. And, of course, you picked Coosa, I picked Coosa,
Yes.
David Dawson picked Coosa. Several of us picked Coosa. Well, I don't know. I think they must have, like, pictures of us now from the newspaper with bullseyes on their forehead now because they weren't happy about that. I'm just kidding. They made jokes with me about it. But you know what? This week I'm going to pick against Model again. I mean, I think Model has improved. I think they've gotten better as a team, and they definitely have the killer instinct this year, which is something I've not seen from this team in a while. And when you look at history, this is kind of surprising. Made a note about it. Model leads this series 24-22. Did you know that?
It would not surprise me because there for several years Calhoun was not very good. However, when was the last time Model beat Calhoun?
1999.
Exactly.
So it has been quite some time.
And 99 is not as long ago as I thought it might have been. So they've had some wins.
Absolutely. But it's been a long time nonetheless.
Yeah.
Calhoun is just too good a team. Model might make it interesting for a quarter or two, but once Calhoun gets clicking on offense, there's nothing Model's defense can do to stop their offense. They're going to score a bunch of points. And quite honestly, I think at the end of the day, Calhoun's going to win this game by about 30 points.
You know, I don't know if Calhoun will win by 30. It wouldn't surprise me if they win by 30 or 40 or even 50. I mean, the key about this game is, you know, Model goes in, again, with nothing to lose. They can go for it on fourth down. They can do some crazy stuff and really try to get into Calhoun's heads. I don't think it's going to be enough. The personnel Calhoun has is just too much. And, I mean, they're the best team in AA right now, probably one of the top teams in any classification in the state. Model has improved greatly. One of the reasons I picked against Model last week was when I saw them against Sonoraville, when I saw them against Armurchie, I covered both those games, I did not feel that Model had the quote-unquote killer instinct that Matt mentioned. I saw a very much improved Model team last Friday night. Yeah, I did pick against them. I thought Coosa was going to win, and there for a little while I thought my pick looked good. And then the second quarter happened. And as always, they were able to prove me wrong. Fine. Trust me, I missed quite a few. That being said, I'm not going to miss this one. Calhoun's going to win. For Model, the hope is don't get too, play well, don't get too down because next week you're going to have to bring it against Dade County because you have to win that game to ensure you get the number 3 seed from 7AA in the playoffs. Moving on, a team I just mentioned, Chattooga. That's not the team I mentioned, another one. Chattooga's traveling to Dade County. Dade County, 70% of our UPick'em users believe the Wolverines will get another region win here. Matt, Chattooga kind of gave Pepperell a tough game last week. Can they beat Dade County this week?
I don't know about this one. Something interesting about this matchup, both teams technically still have a shot at the playoffs, sort of. But when you look at Chattooga and who they have next week, I don't think so because Chattooga's got to finish off the season with Calhoun. They're not going to win that game.
No.
They've got to win this game, but even if they do, they're not going to make the playoffs. Dade County, on the other hand, I think they've got a lot more to play for in this game. When you look at the statistics, on paper, I think you could conclude that potentially Chattooga's got a shot in this game because defensively, they're doing a little bit better than Dade County is. But there's one reason for that. They have not played Calhoun yet, and Dade County has. I think that Dade County is going to be a little bit stronger in this game. The one thing I would be concerned about if I was Dade County, and we've said this all season long, Chattooga does have a few guys on their team that have a tremendous amount of speed. If Dade County starts making mistakes and putting the ball on the turf, Chattooga has potential to get in this game and win it with their speed. I don't think that's going to happen. I think Dade County's got a lot right on this game. They know it, and I think they're going to play well. And at the end of the day, I think they're going to win.
This one's tough for me to pick because it's at Dade County. And if Dade County was having a good season and I knew the fans were going to be jacked up and they were going to actually fill the stands, I'd feel really bad about this pick, but I don't because Dade County's only got, 1 win, maybe 2 wins on the season. Hadn't particularly been a great team this year. Chattooga, it reminds me a lot of the Chattooga team last year that had some troubles early in the season and then put together some big wins at the end. Obviously, they got Calhoun next week, so this is their last chance to get a win. While they know they probably can't get in the playoffs, they can most definitely affect the playoff situation. If they beat Dade County, I think that's it for the Wolverines. It's curtains for them. They're done. They can't get to the playoffs. Chattooga wants to spoil Dade County's chance of the playoffs. They want to have a good positive to build on heading into the offseason. I'm going to go with Chattooga in this one. It is at Dade County. 70% of our UPick'em users believe Dade County is going to win, but I think Chattooga has become a better football team as the year has gone on. I'm not so sure Dade County has improved as much. Moving on, Southwest Atlanta Christian at Darlington. 100% of our You Pick 'em users picked the Tigers, who are now in a world of hurt because not only are they pretty much knocked out of the Region 6A championship race, which means they will not get a 4th straight region title, their playoff seeding has dropped like a rock from number 2 last week to number 7 or number 8 this week. All of a sudden, Darlington may not even get a home playoff game after losing to Mount Zion last week. Matt, what about this week?
Well, a couple of unfortunate things about last weekend. Obviously, Darlington lost the game. I heard that at the end of the game they had a touchdown callback due to a penalty.
You're really going to go with that again? Every time Darlington loses, it's because a penalty. A touchdown was called back,
I wasn't
right?
there, so I don't have an opinion on that. But it is interesting given the fact that also in that game, their quarterback, Brad Butler, was injured and spent a lot of the time out of the game.
Yeah.
So that was really the main thing. I think if he's in the whole game and in the game, they win the game.
Yes.
But nonetheless, Mount Zion picked up the win, and kudos to them because they picked up a couple upset victories along the way this year and apparently are a much better football team than we probably gave them credit for being at the beginning of the year. They've been proving themselves.
Yeah.
So, going into this game, though, Southwest Atlanta Christian, they're not a good football team. They haven't forfeited a couple of games because of equipment problems. They've been getting beat by 50 and 60 points every game. It doesn't matter if Brad Butler plays in this game or not. Darlington is going to be able to win this game easily. They'll win by 40 or 50, no problem.
Yeah, I agree with you here. And this is what I've said about Darlington all year long. They're a good team. They're not a great team. We saw it again last week. That's a team that a Darlington team a couple years ago would have put away without a problem. Again, Mount Zion, kudos to them. Great win. But for Darlington, it really hurts their playoff chances, their playoff run chances, because now instead of possibly having an easier first-round game at home, they may still have a first-round game at home, but it will not be an easy one. Darlington wins this game running away. Southwest Atlanta Christian only has like 13 players, so Darlington wins without a problem. Mount Zion travels to play Gordon Lee. 56% of our You Pick 'em users believe Mount Zion will win this game. If Mount Zion wins this game, they are definitely the Region 6A champions and will play for the Region 6A title, probably against Walker next week. Obviously, if Gordon Lee wins, I still don't think it really. Well, if Gordon Lee wins, I do believe that Darlington ends up taking Mount Zion's spot. Gordon Lee lost to Tryon last week. Matt, can Gordon Lee put it back together and beat Mount Zion?
They've really got to bounce back. The last couple of weeks they were shut out, first by Darlington and lastly by Tryon. That's got to be troubling for them. But since they do have a 5-3 overall record, we've seen that they can play some pretty decent football. So I don't think this is a pushover game whatsoever by any stretch of the imagination. I think Mount Zion is going to have a mighty big challenge on their hand. And I think part of the reason the challenge is going to be so great is because Gordon Lee, after getting shut out 2 weeks in a row, you got to feel like they want to get out there and prove themselves again. And so they're going to be playing extremely hard in this game. Mount Zion, though, I think right now they're just really on a roll. And they've got a lot of confidence they're going to be able to bring into this game that Gordon Lee is not going to have.
Yeah.
The one thing you got to watch out for in that situation is, being overconfident.
Yeah.
But I think a team that didn't they lose every game last year?
I think they lost every game in the previous 2 years.
Okay, the previous 2 years. I don't think overconfidence is going to be a factor.
Shouldn't be.
I think that they're still living in reality to a certain degree, given what they've had happen to them in the past couple of years. So at the end of the day, I think Mount Zion being on a roll, I'm going with them.
Well, the only thing I worry about here with Mount Zion is a letdown game because they have to be riding this high up here after upsetting Darlington. Gordon Lee, they need this game. They need this win in the worst possible way. Number one, for the power rankings, they're out of the region title race. That ain't going to happen. But at least with the power rankings, they're still in the playoff picture. They got to win this game to try to bump up to hopefully try to get a home game. I don't think that's going to happen either, but at least they can possibly get an easier opponent. For Mount Zion, I think it's more of the same. I just think Gordon Lee's had so many problems the last couple of weeks. I don't see them getting everything righted for this game. I'm going to go with Mount Zion. They win this game. Murray County travels to play Pepperell. 100% of our You Pick 'em users pick Pepperell. I'm just going to be real quick about this one. Pepperell wins easy. It's a good rest-up game before the last game of the season as they start to get ready for the playoffs. Matt?
I'm with you 100% on this one. I mean, Murray County has struggled all year long. They've not been able to pick up a win. And not only that, it hadn't even been close in any game that they've played. Pepperell should have absolutely no problem with this game. Then next week, they'll turn around and play Almerchie to close out the season. Their season was definitely stacked pretty heavy at the beginning. And now, well, I can't really say that because they had Model last week or week before last, and Model really gave them a scare.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Pebbles definitely played the toughest competition that they're going to have in the regular season this year, and it's quite remarkable, given the slow start that they had, that we're going to see Pepperell do exactly what we said they would do when region play started. Yeah. Finish second and only lose one region game, and that's to Calhoun. And I think that's what you're going to see transpire over the next couple of weeks. And this game's a lock. There's no way they're going to lose this one.
I agree with you. After the commercial break, we're going to talk about 5 or 6 more games, including the first playoff game of the 2012 football season. Stick around.
Begin your future at Georgia Northwestern Technical College. We offer degrees, diplomas, and certificates in over 200 programs of study. Choose a career in business, health, industrial, or public service. With the flexibility of day, evening, and online classes at any of our 5 campus locations, getting your education at GNTC has never been more convenient. There are many financial aid options available, including student loans. Apply now. Georgia Northwestern Technical College. Your college, your town, your future.
Welcome back to the show. You just heard from our sponsors, Georgia Northwestern Technical College and Riverside Automotive Group, who've been with us almost throughout the entirety of our show. We'd like to thank them for their patronage, obviously. Best Academy travels to play Rockmart in our next game we talk about. 100% of our U-Pick'em users believe Rockmart will get another region win. I'm going to jump in right there with them. Rockmart has to win this game. And then hope for some help along the way. They look like they're a playoff team. They lose this game, I don't think they will be, but if they win this game, they still have a very good chance. Matt, do you think Rockmart loses this game?
I think there's a little bit of irony in this because Best is the second worst team in the region. And I think they've won only one game.
I believe that's right. Yeah.
They've really struggled this year. Rockmart, on the other hand, they can be a little Jekyll and Hyde sometimes. Sometimes you never know what you're going to get with them. But the one thing that always remains true, and we say this all the time, Rockmart always puts athletes on the field.
Yes.
And I just think that no matter what happens in this game, the athleticism that you're going to get from Rockmart in this game is going to trump anything that Best Academy is going to be able to put on the field. So barring some crazy turn of events and a lot of turnovers and just a team absolutely melting down and falling apart, I would think Rockmart should definitely win this game.
Like I said, I agree 100%. I believe Rockmart wins this game. The Rome Wolves travel to play Villa Rica, their last road game before the playoffs. They will be at home next week. 100% of our U-Pick'em users believe the Wolves will win. Matt, can Villa Rica pull an upset here?
I think there's a possibility of that. I know that you mentioned 100% of the U-Pick'em users pick Rome. I'm surprised there weren't a few dissenters in that, and I'll tell you why. Villa Rica has managed to win 4 games this year. Yeah. Obviously, every game that these teams play are region games, and a couple of the games that stick out to me would be the East Paulding and Allatoona games that they played in. East Paulding didn't beat Villa Rica quite as bad as they beat Rome, and the loss that Villa Rica took to Allatoona was a little bit worse than Rome, but not much. It was fairly comparable. So those things really speak to me. I think Villa Rica is going to be more competitive in this game than people give them credit for being. With that said, I think that Rome is going to be a little bit better, and if things go their way for the most part in this game, I think they can even afford to make a couple of mistakes and still win this game. But if they start turning the ball over and things start going south, I think Villa Rica could jump on them. And yes, to answer your question, I do think Villa Rica could upset Rome, but I don't think they're going to. I think Rome squeaks out a win.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you here. My cause for concern here is Rome didn't look great last week against a team they probably should have looked great against. Of course, that could have been a hangover from the really big loss to East Paulding the week before that. This is a case of where Rome just needs to take care of business. They win this week against Villa Rica and next week against Woodland. They're guaranteed the number 3 seed in the playoffs out of region 5A. Which unfortunately is either going to be against Gainesville, is either going to be at Gainesville or at Flowery Branch. Neither one of those teams are going to be a pushover by any stretch of the imagination, and they'll be heavily favored to beat Rome. But Rome's got to make sure if they can start working on the passing game and open up the passing game a little bit, get that defense clamping down a little bit more. You know, I mean, this is time to get everything ready for the playoffs. Don't flub up and lose it. I don't think they will, but it might be a lot closer than most people think it will be. Moving on, Cartersville, still undefeated on the season, travels to play Sonoraville. 96% of our UPick'em users believe the Purple Hurricanes will win. I believe those other 4% must have hit the wrong button because Cartersville's going to win this one in a landslide. Sonoraville, tough year, but they are not good enough to beat Cartersville. They may, no, they're not even going to hang with them. Never mind. Cartersville wins big, Matt.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. I think if you pick Sonoraville in this game, something could be a little off, just to be honest with you. Cartersville is firing on all cylinders. They held a pretty good Adairsville offense to only 3 points, and they held a really, really good Gordon Central offense to only, 19 points a couple of weeks ago? They're a really solid team. I think they've got a lot of people's attention this year. Shouldn't be any problem for them. To win this game. Sonoraville kind of surprised me a couple of weeks ago. Was it Adairsville that they hung 39 points on, something like that? They can score, but that was against Adairsville. Cartersville's defense is much better. I think Cartersville could even shut them out potentially. So I'm going with Cartersville in this game. Obviously.
Gotcha. Tryon at Christian Heritage. 93% of our UPick'em users believe Tryon's going to win this game. I'm disagreeing. I think Christian Heritage wins this game. In fact, I'm actually very surprised that only 7% of our users believe that Christian Heritage will win. But then again, this is a Tryon area, so a lot of Tryon fans voting there. I could be wrong, but I see Christian Heritage winning this game, Matt.
You know what? I'm kind of surprised that you went that direction. And I'm going that direction as well. I'd made up my mind earlier that I was going with Christian Heritage. It's very interesting because Christian Heritage has a roster of, I believe, 28 kids, which is not a lot of kids. Obviously, Tryon's going to be able to put that many more, put many more people on their sidelines than Christian Heritage is going to be able to. But apparently, all 28 of those kids are football players, and they've had a surprisingly good introduction to GHSA football. I think they've got a lot of momentum right now. I think Tryon had some momentum at the beginning of the season, and of course they did shut out Gordon Lee a couple of weeks ago. But I just don't know. I just don't have a good feeling in terms of picking Tryon in this game. I think Christian Heritage is going to put together a fine game, and they're going to win.
Well, one thing to be said about personnel there, you mentioned that Christian Heritage only has 28 kids. Well, back in 1998, I covered a high school in Florida called Estero High School. They had 32 kids dressed out on the varsity roster. They went to the state finals in Class 5A in Florida and came within a touchdown of winning. If not for a fumble, they would have been the 5A champs with a grand whopping 32 kids. It's not so much the number of kids on the team, but how good those kids can play and how much they believe. So kudos to Christian Heritage for doing so well with that few kids. Again, I've seen it happen before. I'm not projecting Christian Heritage is going to win a state title by any stretch of the imagination, but just because you have few kids doesn't mean your team's not any good. Moving on. Community Christian, traveling to play Unity Christian. 96% of our UPick'em users believe that the Lions will win this first-round playoff game in the ICSGA playoffs. They're hosting. They were the number 2 seed from the north in their region, the ICSGA, which is the Independent Christian Schools of Georgia and Alabama, or Alphabet Soup League, as I like to call it. Community Christian and Unity played earlier this year. Community won 20-13, Unity won 20-13, although Community had 2 chances within the red zone in the last 5 minutes, could not deliver either time. Unity's defense came up big. Matt, can the Lions win again?
You know, it's always tough to beat the same team twice in a season. It always is, especially when you've got comparable teams. And I think in this situation, it's obvious that these two teams match up pretty well against each other. But the bottom line is, each team really has to win this game, or otherwise we all know what happens. You clean out your lockers and you go home. The season is over. Unity, they get better as the season goes on.
Yes.
They've proven that the last couple of years. We talk about how good their coaching staff is, and I think that holds true. I mean, I think that has been proven. I mean, he takes what he's got and he makes the most of these players, and even if they're not football players at the beginning of the season, they start to look like football players towards the end of the season.
Most definitely.
So even though, as I mentioned, it is tough to beat the same team twice in a season when you've got a pretty comparable matchup, I just have a hunch that Unity's going to find a way to win this game. They're very competitive. Last year, they were very competitive in the playoffs. Granted, they have some players on that team that you can't say they have on this team, or maybe not even close in some respects.
Yeah.
But they do have the same coaching staff, and I do think that they've been able to garner that killer instinct as the season's gone on. So I think Unity's going to win a close football game and advance to the next round. And unless I'm mistaken, In the ICSJ playoffs, the first round is the quarterfinal round, isn't it?
Yes,
So
next
you
round
have-
is the semis.
Yeah, so who knows? We'll see what happens, but I'm going with Unity.
Yeah, and when I covered the game 3 or 4 weeks ago when they played, one of the key things there is Unity had at least one drop pass in the end zone. They had a couple of drop passes that played big. They had a turnover that was huge. Unity played a much better game than Community did, in my humble opinion. Their defense came up big when they had to. Unity should have put that game away and should have won by a couple of touchdowns. They didn't. My question here is, which team has improved the most since then? I'm going to go with Unity Christian on that. I think that they're going to be the team that's improved the most. But Community is not a bad team, and Community could definitely, and I think it will be a close game. I'll be up on the hill up at Shorter at Ben Brady Field covering it again. I saw it once, might as well see it twice to see how good these teams are now compared to where they were a few weeks ago. I'm going with Joe Curtis's Lions again, although it would not surprise me if this game is very, very close.
And we'll be there as well for the Northwest Georgia High School football game of the week.
Tag team in both ways, video and radio. You can't miss it.
We'll have to get you to come over for a halftime.
I would be more than happy to, and I may scare off your listeners, unfortunately. One last game to talk about. It is a doozy for the Cedartown Bulldogs in a must-win situation. It's win or no playoffs. Cedartown travels to play Gilmer County. 67% of our U-Pick'em users believe Cedartown will win. This is our tie-break game. Average score, Cedartown 30, Gilmer County 26. So most everybody thinks it's going to be close. Matt, I'm going to let you have the first stab at this one.
Gosh, this one I have really had to think about quite a bit this week. Nick Chubb has been the story for Cedartown all year long, and I wish I had his numbers with me. I meant to bring them, and I don't. But he is closing in on some records. And the thing is, for him to get to those records, which obviously that's not Cedartown's goal, is to get their players' records. But for him to get to that, they got to get to the playoffs, from what I understand. I don't know if that's going to happen, because even if they win this game and then win next week, from what I understand, they got to have some help as well. Do you know that situation very well?
Yeah, River Ridge has to lose unless I'm balancing. It all starts with Cedartown. They've got to win. If they win, then the dominoes got to fall into place. They cannot play for the region title. That's already out. If they win, they may get the number 2 spot. They may get the number 3 spot in the play-in games, meaning they'd have a chance to get to the playoffs. That being said, and you are wrong about Chubb. If he can run for 500 yards this week and next week, he'll be fine.
Yeah, okay.
But he's a good, I believe, by my calculations, 804 yards shy of the single-season rushing record. Obviously, if he had 3 more games to go, averaging 250, almost 300 yards a game, he would probably get it. But then again, he'll be playing much stiffer opponents this week, next week, and the next, so we'll see.
You notice I'm trying to delay this process.
I was about to say, I cannot remember who you picked. Let's put you back on the... Okay, I'll tell you what. I'm picking Gilmer County. I know Cedartown fans are going to get mad at me. Don't really care. I think Nick Chubb's going to go for 200, 220. I'm afraid that Cedartown's defense, again, is going to be the undoing of the ball club. I believe Gilmer County wins. I believe Cedartown will not make the playoffs. Matt, what do you think?
I was going to say the same thing. I mean, I can show you my paper here. I put Gilmer County.
You just wanted me the bad guy. The bad guy first.
Yeah. I'm going with
and
Gilmer
I'm also
County.
picking against model fans, so, y'all can hate me too.
Gosh, it's not working out too well. Anyway, I'm going with Gilmer County in this game for all the reasons that you said. They've been a little more solid this year.
Yeah.
Their record's a little bit better in the region. They've got a lot to play for here in this game, just as Cedartown does. But at the same time, I've got to go with the consistency. And Cedartown has been consistent in one area, and one area only, and that is giving the football to Nick Chubb and letting him do his thing, and he's had success in every game, even the games that they've lost. With that said, I just think the one-dimensional nature of this team is going to bite them again, and Gilmer County is going to be all around a little bit better of a team, and it's going to show in this game, and they're going to win. It's going to be close, but Gilmer County wins.
The other thing I would say about this game is if it was at Cedartown, I'd probably be going the other way. It's at Gilmer County. Gilmer County, it's a big game for them, too. They need this win as well. So, both of these teams are going to be fighting like mad. I just think at the end of the day, Gilmer County has shown over the last 4 or 5 games that they're a slightly better team than Cedartown. I think they're more two-dimensional offense. I believe their defense is a little bit better. That's why I think Gilmer County wins. I will not surprise me if it's a close game. It would not surprise me if it's an overtime game. But at the end of the day, I'm going to say Cedartown's going to lose. Of course, you can check back with us Friday night to see whether we're right, whether we're wrong. You can laugh at us, cut a picture out of the paper, throw darts at it, whatever you want to. Just don't throw darts at us in person, please. Friday night, we'll have the Gridiron Central Scoreboard Show where we will recap all of the action, including our first playoff game for 2012, video highlights from 3 of the games that we cover, articles, photos, analysis, you name it, we'll have it, PrepCentralOnline.com. Again, Gridiron Central Scoreboard Friday night. Until then, from Matt Davis, Kevin Myrick, and Austin Wiggins, I'm Jim Allred saying we'll see you on the sidelines.
Gridiron Central is sponsored by Georgia Northwestern Technical College, Riverside Automotive Group,